What's going on, guys? This is a football show, Thursday edition. His name is Zach. My name is Braden. Of course, got a lot of stuff planned for you guys today as we are now, Zach? 1 week post AJ? Is that where we are? 1 week post AJ?
1 week later tonight.
How you feeling? You okay? Have you recovered?
Yeah, feeling good.
Got a nice therapy session out on the F Words pod. Go check that out, of course. The Football and Other F Words podcast from Broadway Sports Media. Make sure you go check that out. Of course, we are brought to you by the Kingston Group each and every Monday and Thursday, 1 p.m. Central Time, God's time, Zach. Make sure you go and click all the buttons. Tell everybody all the buttons they should be clicking right now.
They need to be clicking the retweet button. There's like 3 dots or something at the bottom of your Periscope or Twitter screen. Share that. Just copy and paste and tell everybody that they need to come and subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that's where the chats and the action is at. And just put it out on Twitter. Tell everybody. Just keep retweeting it.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Share the product. That is what we ask. BuildKG.com is the website for our great sponsor, the Kingston Group. Nashville's locally owned custom home and remodeling firm. If you're going to make a huge decision about your house, hundreds of thousands of dollars, why would you do that without all the best possible information? So make sure you check out the Kingston Group, BuildKG.com, especially with the way Nashville real estate is completely hammered right now. So make sure you check out our wonderful sponsors. And we've got a great show planned for you guys today. We'll talk SEC quarterbacks in the first round, 3, 4, 5 of them from the SEC potentially in 2023. We will talk about Ryan Tannehill talking to the media, of course. We will discuss Malik Willis, how he fits into all of this, as well as your analysis of Tim Kelly and what he brings to the Titans offense. We've got an interesting debate at the end of the show about Jon Marant right here, Jon Marant, and of course, Derrick Henry and Roman Yossi. So we'll get into that, as well as comparing and contrasting the rosters from May of last year to May of this year. So we'll do all of that. But Zach, would you like to, and by the way, we are not in the Cast Collective. You should still go check them out. Great place for private gatherings or whatever. So make sure you check out Cast Collective, Cast_Collective on Instagram. But Zach, would you like to tell everybody why we are not currently sitting in our studio just 3 shows into our new product?
Well, COVID finally came for Lauren, and we have done a good job. I still haven't gotten it myself, but most of our extended family has gotten it. And while we are both vaxxed, and I am showing no signs of symptoms, Lauren is a little worse for wear, so I'm having to stay home and, take care of her, be a good husband, a good human being. Some might say Nobel Peace Prize award-winning human being coming up.
Really? I do like how the "I'm being a good husband" sentence and conversation began with it's all her fault. It's all her fault.
We don't know if it's her fault. I'm just saying that she is the reason. It's obviously someone else's fault. She didn't go out and inject herself with COVID. I'm fairly confident in that.
I would like to believe that your relationship is on firm ground, that you know exactly what happened. All right. So make sure you also check out before we get into the Tannehill conversation, as well as Malik Willis, Tim Kelly, SEC quarterbacks for 2022 and the 23 draft, as well as sort of some debates we're going to have about the roster and some athletes in Tennessee. Obviously, F Words podcast, Broadway Sports Media, all your scribings are over there. Make sure you're checking out Music City Audible, the Hot Read podcast, brand new show, of course, from Broadway Sports Media and 440 Sports. You got Lame Stream Sports. You got the Gold Standard covering the Predators, Club and Country doing a great job covering Nashville SC. So we've got anything you could ever need. 440 and Broadway, basically anything you'd ever need is in terms of Nashville sports. We got you covered. So is that about doing it? I think we got all the bills paid here, Zach.
I think we paid them all. So let me dive into the first question that I've been dying to ask you. Did Tannehill give you what you wanted? But now, for those that may not know, a couple of episodes ago, me and Braden were talking, and we were talking. I said I personally don't care what he says. He's more than likely going to give you coach speak answers, and I don't think anybody's going to be happy regardless of what he says. And you did say it just goes a long way for some optics. And in between all that, he posted a couple of pictures and a couple of that video. Bad optics galore. So, Braden, did Tannehill give you what you wanted?
Yeah, actually. I think this is a complicated answer, because to your point all along, and to most people's points, like, what is he actually going to say? And to be honest with you, I think he said a lot more than anyone expected him to say. But to me, this was about bringing the temperature down. And that's really kind of all this was. Like, be responsible, take some accountability, and then bring the temperature down, because Twitter has just been boiling, and Twitter's not real life. I get that. But the reason Ryan Tannehill needs to talk is that all these people have questions. Fans, media represents the fans. We just want to hear from you. And that lowers the temperature a little bit, releases some of the steam from the pot. And I think if he had given a bunch of stock answers in his press conference, I think it would have done the job. He answered some tough questions. There was a lot of people that asked tough questions, and he answered them like a grown-ass man and a professional quarterback. And then
sometimes a little too much of a grown-ass man, if you ask some people.
And not if you ask me. I think it's great. I will always take an athlete or a coach who's more willing to be honest and humanize the situation and the experience than I'll take Belichick or these guys, Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, that don't say anything. That's just boring. It makes for bad fandom, frankly. And I think Tannehill humanized the entire experience. And I think had fans known all of this stuff about him, there's still plenty, Zach, that would be complete a-holes on Twitter. But I think most fans would take a step back before they try to attack a guy or his family or his dog or whatever it is that you would attack Ryan Tannehill for. If you know he's going to therapy and can't sleep at night because of how he played, that's all you want to hear. You just want to hear that it matters, that he cares, and that he's working to try to be better. And I know that sounds silly, but that's kind of what you need to say when you have a bad game.
Yeah, I think you got more than what you could have actually hoped for out of Ryan Tannehill, considering that he could have easily just came out and basically gave you crap answers, kind of like what he did after the loss itself, just canned responses that don't really matter. And you got a little bit more for bang for your buck out of this presser. And of course, when everybody's wondering if Ryan Tannehill is going to be there when it was announced they were doing the player press conferences, and they didn't tell you who was going to be out there, then it broke. But I thought it was funny that they go NWI, Ryan Tannehill, Christian Fulton. And let me say this, poor Christian Fulton, he was up there for like 5 questions. I felt bad. The media was just like, we're done. We got what we needed out of today. We're done with you, Christian Fulton. We're letting you off the hook.
Well, and frankly, I don't even want to address the people that are like anti-therapy. I don't even have any words for you. I really don't. I go to therapy. My wife and I go to therapy. I've heard you talk openly about I think all humans should go to therapy. I think it's
anybody that spends their time on Twitter probably needs therapy.
Yeah. Well, right here.
Right.
A self-prescribed Twitter addict who also goes to therapy. That's how I counterbalance the two. To spend some time on Twitter, equal amount of time in therapy. That's how it works. I think Tannehill sometimes is almost too, he's very thoughtful with his answers, but he's very calculated. He doesn't give a ton of information, but he does put a lot sometimes into one sentence. And I think, when he's like, I'm in a dark space, I've been going to therapy for years, but I couldn't sleep, I couldn't do this. All it does to me is just sort of, again, takes the pressure down, brings the temperature down, calms people down, humanizes the experiment or the experience that he's going through. And had he done that a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I'm not sure the conversations around Nashville media, I'm not sure the conversations would have been the same. I think they would have been slightly different. I think we would have been going, all right, guys, look, he didn't play well. He knows it. Let's leave the guy alone. He's a human being.
Well, I also think that there's an element in all of this where he just couldn't muster up the energy and the emotional fortitude to be able to do it. And when you get into these dark moments in your time, it's hard to pull yourself out. It's hard to let other people help you and pull yourself out. And so I totally get it and understand why he had to take the break that he did when he put it in the context that he put it in.
Sure.
Because that's what people thought was that he was just going and having a vacation. And, you even still heard people ask him, about what he was doing, down in Florida. And he was like, well, it's just because I had a picture that was 2 months ago get released, and it doesn't mean I wasn't working out the rest of the time or doing this and that. And, those questions have to be asked because that's what the fans need to know. And the media is the voice of the fan, or trying to get, they're detectives for the fans, trying to get the information that fans want most of the time. So saying all that.
Answer is yes. The answer to your question is yes. I got everything I needed out of Ryan Tannehill.
So mentor debate, because that's of course the big topic, right? I guess I've said pretty much what I needed to say on the Football and Other F Words podcast, which is out now, so you can go to anywhere that your podcasts are at and go see, and you can see most of what I say on Twitter. I want to tackle 2 things on this that I think are being mentioned, but not being talked about enough in further detail. One of those is the difference between being a mentor, being a leader, and mentorship and leadership. And it's very obvious that a lot of people don't know the difference. They think if you're a leader, you have to be a mentor. You know, I think a good example to put it in terms of pop culture, I would say that Captain America is a fantastic leader, but Iron Man was the mentor to Peter Parker and all that in the MCU Marvel universe. Or if you want to go to 30 Rock, Jack Donaghy was trying to be a mentor to Liz Lemon.
That's a
but
good one.
Liz Lemon was more of a leader for everybody underneath her. She wasn't a mentor to really anybody there, but she was the leader or manager. I wouldn't necessarily call her a great leader or an effective leader, but technically that would be how you would do it.
She's a damn funny leader if she's a leader, that's for sure. So what you're suggesting is that the words mentor and leader mean different things.
Yeah, they mean different things, and you could be they're mutually exclusive items.
So they are, in fact, two separate words.
Two separate words. They're spelled differently. They have different definitions. I mean, it's just wild. I know this is wild to say. And I also think people are pigeonholing what their viewpoint of a leader is instead of leaving open that there is definitely 30 ways you could probably be an effective leader in different styles. And I think that people are putting their own personal box of leadership and making everybody fit into that as their style of leadership. It's also funny to me that no one's actually stopped to ask themselves, does Malik even want Ryan Tannehill as a mentor? Does he already have a mentor? Because you see that Malik is out there, and I'm not saying this is a good mentor. In fact, I'd say I would love to see Malik stay far away from this person, but he's training with Deshaun Watson.
Oh, yeah.
Not the mentor you want, but maybe that is the mentor that Malik is connecting with. And
on the field, I'm fine with that. Everything else, concerning.
There's a special bond between mentor and mentee that's vastly different from two subsets: leader-follower and teacher-student. Those are all three different things. Now, you can be all three, and people can fall under two of the three or just one, but they don't have to be mutually exclusive. Do you want to know the most ridiculous? I got two really ridiculous things I want to tell you because you probably don't know. Okay. So the Locked On Titans guy, his name is Tyler Rowland, if I'm not mistaken, is his last name. He's Tic Tac Titans on Twitter. He said that it is Ryan Tannehill's job to not only mentor Malik Willis, but to mentor everybody in the locker room. Now, tell me that guy does not know what the word mentor means.
I do not know this person personally.
Yeah, so I don't either. I just,
my follow-up, right? My follow-up question would be that question: like, are you sure you know? Listen, we can point to. I don't even like. You've already done enough of this conversation that I'm already tired of it. Like, I don't want.
I got more because I got new information. Like, I know you're tired of it, but I got
the only thing I care about is how dumb the national media is on this. And
I mean, you got Jonathan Hutton tweeting out again about Logan Woodside being. What if Logan Woodside came out and said he was the mentor for Malik Willis? Like, who fucking gives a shit about Logan Woodside? Why are we trying to bring Logan Woodside into this?
I'll get to my national media rant here just a second, but go ahead and finish up your points because I think most people understand what you're trying to get across here. I think there's a vocal minority that doesn't understand.
Yeah, I'm carrying it home right here because the specific word is that everybody wants to say this is his job. So I'm going to take you back to 2008 or 2018. Sorry, went back a decade too quick. And this is Mike Vrabel talking about what he expects from players and specifically veterans and what their expectations are for the rookies coming in. So this is before rookie mini camp in Mike Vrabel's first year. The first thing they do is they learn and they go hard and they play hard and they finish. I think that is the first thing Vrabel said. If you don't know what to do, there are a lot of veteran players that are going to refuse to play with you. So again, if you are a rookie and you don't know what to do by the time minicamp is done or rolls around, veterans are going to refuse to play with you. They're going to ask me to remove them from the field because they are making mistakes and they are costing the team. That was the first thing I told him when our guys get in here on Monday. You better know what to do. You better be able to play hard and finish, because they are not going to stand for less given in this culture that our guys have set in just a few short weeks, the veterans. That they are studying and they're going to go hard and they are in condition. You've just got to make sure you're accountable to yourself, and you've got to make sure you not one of the guys to come out here, that you're not one of the guys to come out here and not know what you're doing. So the onus is on the rookies to carry themselves on this thing, on this team. That is set back in 2018. That was from paulkarski.com. I'm going to follow this up with what Ben Arthur said. This was from Tannehill is getting younger. He turns 34 in July. This was a few weeks ago from an interview, I think around Combine time. Jon Robinson.
This is of the Tennessee, Ben Arthur of the Tennessean.
Ben Arthur of the Tennessean. Jon Robinson says, none of the players are getting younger. That's the nature and the circle of life in the National Football League. We tell the players that. The veteran players that are in our meeting room, their job is to not let the younger players coming in take their job. The younger players, their job is to carve a role on the team to try to have a career as a professional football player. You're constantly looking at every position group. You're trying to get younger, blah, 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 blah. There's stuff that doesn't matter. And finally, to tell you what Malik's viewpoint of all this is, there is an interview shortly after he was drafted. It was on TitansWire.com this morning. Ryan Tannehill is a great player and is a great leader for this organization, which, by the way, Mike Vrabel and Jon Robinson, the first thing out of their mouths when they talked about Ryan Tannehill's status with the Titans is that he's a great leader, by the way. That's what also NWI closed out his press conference talking about, was him being a great leader. I just want to come in, do all I can to get better at my craft, all I can. Whenever that time comes for me to get on the field, then that time will come. Until then, I'm just going to go try to learn and be the best teammate I can be. He got advice from his uncle, whose name's James Anderson, who played in the league for 11 years. And he said, he let me know that it doesn't matter where you get picked. It's about the work you put in. Willis said it. It's about what you do every day and how good of a teammate you are and how many people follow behind you. Malik Willis does not need Ryan Tannehill to mentor. It's literally not his job to mentor. And I think people got to get that through their thick fucking skull.
Ryan Tannehill, and okay, this is you feel better?
Yes,
you good?
I do. Okay.
That's
a whole new subset of anger that I didn't
know was there.
This anger is amassed itself in between the football and other efforts being released in today.
Well, welcome to a football show, your therapy session from Twitter every single week, Mondays and Thursdays, 1 p.m. Central Time. Subscribe to the YouTube page, please. Go to buildkg.com. All right, so my issue with this is that it's not an issue. And you've just laid out all the actual details as to why. Ryan Tannehill just said the thing out loud. And what drives me insane is that if you were there, or that if you saw it in real time, or if you listened to the entire conversation and back and forth with him, I don't think you could have anything negative to say about what he said. I don't think there's anything there. There's nothing there for me. And if you listen to his conversations, it's completely, I don't want to say out of context, but this is a little peek behind the curtain for how the media works. The national media, and this applies for politics, it applies to sports, it applies to everything. Cable news, national radio, and even local radio to some degree, anxiety, conflict, sensationalism, keeping you engaged is how they make money. I work for ESPN. You make money by keeping people engaged on ESPN radio for 5 minutes at a time and winning the quarter hour and then getting them to come back to the next segment. That's how you win and make money for your advertisers. So what their jobs are to do on all these cable news shows and all these TV shows and all these radio shows and all these clickbait websites is to engage you, generally with conflict, with disagreement, with anxiety, literally, so the dopamine releases in your brain and you stay on the app longer. I realize the irony of me saying this on YouTube and Twitter.
Yeah, but we're giving good content.
Right.
We're telling you why it does not matter.
Right.
And telling you not to listen to these other clowns who don't know what mentor and leader mean, and they're trying to sensationalize something because their ratings are probably down.
Right. Well, it's not even that they're down. It's that that's how the business model works. It's not, this is where it's not a flaw. It's a part of the system. It's not a flaw in the system. It's how the system works. Now, I would argue it's a flaw, but that's a different conversation on a different pod. I just it's not his job to be a mentor. Is it his job to make sure that like the quarterback room is like professional and friendly? I would say yes. That's called being a human being.
Yeah,
But
I think we all know that it will. Like, I
Right,
think that's the
right.
thing is that, people want to bring up Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes. Alex Smith himself said, I don't really see myself as a mentor to Patrick Mahomes. When it came out that he said all this stuff, Patrick Mahomes saw him as a mentor, but he just like, I'm just a nice guy. I just do what I do. And I think that is the disconnect that everybody's having, is that there's multiple ways to look at
Yeah.
a relationship between two humans. You can't pigeonhole a relationship.
So again, I have no issue with what Ryan said. I think the national media violently overreacted, as it tends to do, because that is in their best business model interest. And I think it's important for people to know, like when a talking head on TV, we're just talking torsos, by the way. If a talking head on TV says something that pisses you off, he did it on purpose to piss you off. Like that was the whole purpose, which means he or she has won. We can move on, because what's ironic about this entire conversation about Malik Willis specifically is that he's a third-round pick. This isn't Mahomes in the first round. This isn't Aaron Rodgers being mentored by Brett Favre. This isn't Steve Young under Joe Montana. This isn't, this is a third-round pick that the Titans passed on 3 times before drafting. And there's a very real chance that he's never going to start for the Tennessee Titans. There's a chance that he could, but there's a real chance that a third-round quarterback never starts in the league. That's not a crazy thing to say. So let's get into Tim Kelly and what he brings to the table, Malik Willis, what he brings to the table. We had a conversation on Lamestream Sports, the podcast featuring Steve Cavendish of the Nashville Banner. It's out every single Friday. We had a chance to talk to Mel Kiper on that show this week. Make sure you check out that pod. And this is what he had to say about the Titans drafting of Malik Willis.
I think the draft was really impacted with Malik Willis. I think that's the most fascinating. Everything, there's certain picks he's saying, 20 years from now, what are you going to remember? We're going to remember Malik Willis going in the 3rd round to the Tennessee Titans. How does this play out? Is this a big deal? Is this the heir apparent? Is this a guy who can beat out Ryan Tannehill in a couple of years? Or be the heir apparent? Is this a guy that's going to be spectacular? Or is he going to be just a guy who we thought had a lot of talent? We know has a lot of talent, but it never really came together in the NFL. Is he going to be an accent piece? Is he going to be like Trey Lance in San Francisco? Is he going to be like Lamar Jackson was early in his career, that first year in Baltimore with Joe Flacco, where he ran the ball really effectively and gave defensive coordinators so much to think about? I want to see how Tennessee works him in, because his legs, his running skills are outstanding. He's deceptively fast. He's deceptively strong. He's powerful. He's tough. They can have packages for him to run the football. And Tannehill and defensive coordinators, between Tannehill and Malik, you can give a lot. You have a lot to worry about and a lot of sleepless nights. So they can work Malik in without having him worry about, he's not going to start. He's not going to be a factor for another couple of years. You knew that coming out of Liberty with the things he needed to work on. But with his ability to run the football, you can give him packages that will really, I think, benefit this Tennessee offense. So I think this draft is going to be defined by what Malik Willis, how they utilize him and what he develops into.
So that was Mel Kiper on the Lamestream Sports podcast. The entire conversation will be out on Friday. So depending on when you're listening to this, make sure you check out that show with Steve Cavendish. Again, special thanks to Mel for joining us. A couple of different things I want to ask you about, Zach. Number one, just how they're going to use Malik Willis in this first season. Do you see something similar to the way he mentioned Lamar Jackson was used when Joe Flacco was still there? Like, do you want to see that from Malik Willis, or do we want him just taking reps, like as a passer the entire season? Like, what's the goal for Malik Willis's role in his first season, while assuming Tannehill is the starter?
Well, I think there's 2 different things. Do we need to see it? No, we don't need to have these special packages for Malik Willis involved in the offense at all. You're talking about a quarterback in Ryan Tannehill that has 18 rushing touchdowns himself since he's became a starter in the NFL. You have Derrick Henry, who can be utilized in the Wildcat, which they have shown they like to do. So it's not a necessity. Now, selfishly, I would probably like to see it. But I don't think that this draft, him being drafted in the 3rd round, does not mean that they have to make him a feature tool, I guess you would say, for this offense. They don't need Malik Willis special packages or anything like that. They need him to learn. And right now, I feel like what you're doing is, if you are installing certain plays into the playbook that he is learning to run and they are running plays, that time could be better spent teaching him how to read a defense, how to do progressions. I
Right.
feel like it's just a waste of time. It's kind of like, to me, almost the Dylan Radin / let's try him at every different position, known to man. To me, I think that the running obviously would come natural, and it's probably not hard to do a wildcat formation, even though he's a quarterback, with Malik Willis. But I think the focus needs to be on preparing him for 2023 and beyond, not worried about him seeing the field in 2022.
No, I totally agree. And this is where I kind of disagree with Mel a little bit. And I think to your point about using him on offense this year when Tannehill is clearly like the starter is a luxury. Like having a Malik Willis package is a luxury, right? On top of the Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry packages that we're talking about here, Wildcat, whatever. Just like I think defining this draft with the Malik Willis pick, I think he's right when he says like draft people around the world are going to remember this draft for how Malik Willis pans out or not, because they had him projected as a top 10 pick. So I don't think the Titans draft is defined by Malik Willis's success or failure, because if he's a late third round pick, I don't think that matters. I think it can be, again, this is a luxury. It can be defined by Malik Willis if he ends up being your starting quarterback. If he's the starting quarterback for 15 years, then absolutely that pick defined the Tennessee Titans draft. If he's not, this is the beauty of taking him with the 86th pick. If he's not, then you used an 86th pick. It's an asset, but you took a shot. And your shot didn't work, but it was worth the risk, as we talked about on the Monday show. So
yeah, to me, I don't understand why people are so quick to get a guy out there to be out there before he's ready. I mean, he's got the odds stacked up against him to be able to come in and mentally read a defense and do all the stuff that's needed by an NFL quarterback specifically for this offense. There's a lot of stuff that Tannehill does pre-snap that probably Malik cannot do, that requires this offense and makes this offense go. I feel like everybody's got this shiny new toy that's still they're wanting to take it out of the package when it's worth more to let it sit on the shelf for a little bit.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I want to get into Tim Kelly here and what this means for Malik Willis and the development of him. Again, I think all of this is a luxury for the Titans. All of it is sort of like added bonus, and it's all worth the risk of the 86th pick to me. So again, having a package for him in 2022, whether he's the starter or not in 2023, it's all just like, let's see if it works. And if it does, great. If not, we didn't risk a whole lot. And I think the upside is worth the reward is worth the risk, in my opinion. So let's get to Tim Kelly and his part of the offense in terms of what that means for this offense from a package standpoint, maybe some strategy standpoint, where his strengths and weaknesses lie and how that fits into the Malik Willis development. Can you start, Zach, by giving us, and we'll get to who we think could be first-round projected quarterbacks next year from the SEC. There's a bunch of them and a couple other debates about the roster. But just real quickly, some overarching bullet points on what you think Tim Kelly will do to the Titans offense in 2022.
Specifically for 2022 and Tim Kelly's influence on the offense, we're going to probably pass more earlier and often than what we did even last year, even though we did more than what Arthur Smith did. You're going to see 2020 Tannehill return. I think that he will be able to get the most out of Ryan Tannehill since Arthur Smith, more than Todd Downing has.
Why do you say that about Tannehill specifically?
Because of how he has been able to progress and advance when he took over the play calling. And I know he's not taking over the play calling, but he's going to have you don't bring in Tim Kelly, best friends with Mike Vrabel and a passing game coordinator, to not have a heavy hand in the passing offense, which struggled mightily last year under Todd Downing. The route concepts were rudimentary, all this stuff. When Tim Kelly took over for Bill O'Brien and got a little bit more freedom and a little bit more, I guess you could say, authority over the offense, Deshaun Watson started taking off again. I mean, it's just like it was night and day, and Tim Kelly will have that influence on Ryan Tannehill. And I think Tim Kelly is a lot closer to Arthur Smith than he is Todd Downing, in my mind, in terms of skill and everything. You're going to see more 11 personnel, but not only that, you're going to see more passing from 11 personnel.
Love it.
Roughly the same play action usage. I wouldn't see a lot of that go up. Although one of the biggest differences between a Tim Kelly offense and this offense is Derrick Henry and the running backs, and having actual NFL level running backs where they haven't had that in Houston since Arian Foster. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Lamar Miller was nice and all, but he was no Arian Foster.
No, I agree.
And he's no Derrick Henry either. And I think that you'll probably see better opening drive success. This really ties into more of the health factor, because I think if more people were healthy or stayed healthy at the beginning of the game, you would see better opening drive success. But the most importantly, and this ties into Malik Willis, and this also is going to tie in a little bit to Treylon Burks, is explosive pass plays galore are on the horizon if Malik Willis gets up to snuff for the NFL. And I think Ryan Tannehill can do explosive pass plays. We know we've seen it in 2019, 2020. But you're going to see it even more with another year of Treylon Burks in this offense and Malik Willis coming in. Treylon Burks specifically, Burks has the third most explosive pass plays in the SEC by player. That's since 2016, 20-plus yards, by the way. And he had 25 of those. The only people that had more were Devontae Smith, the Jamar Chase, and Emmanuel Hall. And you look at Malik Willis. Malik Willis has a big-time throw percentage of 10.7% his last year at college. That's first among all the quarterbacks eligible. He had his deep yards, he had 1,033 were of deep yards. That is massive amount. His average depth of the target was 11.2 yards. And on top of all that, with this Malik Willis talk was the pressure rate. And he got pressured 36.7% of the time. And that's really unheard of in the college. I mean, there are some players that are worse, but he was 13th among all quarterbacks in 2021 in pressure rate. And you put him behind a better college or better offensive line here in Tennessee, light years better than what you saw in college from Liberty.
Yeah.
And you're going to see a guy that is going to have a lot of time to throw, more time to throw than what he's used to, less pressure to see him than what he's used to, more than likely. And he's going to have a deep ball that's beautiful to Treylon Burks, who can do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think I love 11 personnel in general. Just as a general philosophy, I love 11 personnel. It's sort of the way the game is going. Unless you're Kyle Shanahan and you are an absolute genius and can design plays with Kyle Juszczyk and George Kittle and pre-snap motion. Like, there's very few guys that can do what Kyle Shanahan does from a formational standpoint, pre-snap motion running game. From what this team wants to do, I think what he brings is like bring a little Art Smith to the Todd Downing offense is what you kind of said. And if you're giving me more explosive plays down the field, more throwing out of 11 personnel, and more first down passing, which I know Titans Twitter is obsessed with, of course. I think that's a successful piece of the puzzle for Malik Willis's development. I still think Tim Kelly, Todd Downing, Pat O'Hara, Mike Vrabel, I don't know if it matters. Malik Willis is going to have to still be good enough. He's going to have to be the guy. Have to put
in the work. It's not going to come easy. And
Ryan Tannehill is not going to hold his hand, nor is it his job to hold his hand through this development process. So, listen, the reason you took him was the upside, was the pure talent, was the arm strength, was the athletic ability, all the intangibles that you see, all the skills that you see. It's all the intangibles that we need to learn about: the pre-snap recognition, anticipating throws, the tight windows, putting some touch on the ball on those crossing routes that, let's be honest, they're going to ask Treylon Burks to run. They're going to ask Treylon Burks to run all of A.J. Brown's routes. Whether that's fair or not, whatever. But like, that's what he was drafted to do, is to run those routes. And so can Willis put touch on the ball in tight windows? That's either going to happen or not. And so hopefully Tim Kelly can get that out of him. So, all right, you want to dive into the roster, where it's at right now versus where it was last year? Because
let's do it.
I got 6 categories.
Cinco de Mayo today, so I threw in one a Spanish phrase.
Say what's on the screen. Say it.
Cinco de Mayo comparación. Crap. I've been practicing too. Cinco de Mayo comparaciones de la lista. The R. I can't roll the R. It's the worst.
Comparaciones de la lista.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So 6 categories of the roster for the Tennessee Titans. Okay. We're going to do backfield. We're going to do pass catchers. We're going to do offensive line. We're going to do front 7. We're going to do defensive backs. and we're going to do special teams.
And
we're
we're
going to
including quarterback in the backfield, right?
Absolutely. This is running backs and quarterback room. And this is the entire roster for this conversation. We'll do 1 to 53, not 1 to 90 or whatever. Let's just keep it at what we think is going to actually be on the active roster. But we're going to compare May 2022 to May of 2021. So comparing the roster to this point last year would not include Julio Jones and primarily Zach Cunningham. Those would be the big names, right, that were not on the team in May of last year at this time. Anybody else you need me to include?
No, that should be it.
All right, backfield, running backs and quarterbacks from top to bottom. That room today is better than it was last year at this time, in my opinion.
Absolutely, not even a contest. I mean, you're talking about Hassan Haskins and Ike Hilliard over
Ike Hilliard.
Dontrell Hilliard. Gosh dang. Dontrell Hilliard over what was Jeremy McNichols and Darrington Evans.
Yeah, I don't think it's even close.
Not even close. And you got rid of Kari Blasingame, and you have Torrey Carter. And I think Torrey Carter is better than Blasingame, as long as he can stay healthy. And you're talking about Logan Woodside is basically going to be your quarterback 3 now. I think he'll still make the roster because you want to have that insurance with a rookie. But I think when you look at it top to bottom, I feel a lot better about the running backs and the quarterbacks as a whole, even though I didn't really have a problem with them last year.
Right.
And I wasn't like dreading seeing any of these guys take the field, but they are a better set of running backs and quarterbacks for the Tennessee Titans. Easily.
I totally agree. As a side note, it's kind of just sad that we never really got to see Darrington Evans. We just never got to see him, and he may have a nice career somewhere else, but you've got Hassan Haskins, who's totally fresh tread on the tires. Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill are the same. Malik Willis is an upgrade, period. And end of discussion. The backfield is better. So, all right, off to a positive note here. Wide receivers and tight ends. Now, again, no Julio Jones at this time last season. I think the argument for it staying the same, which is very difficult to make this case here, but the case for it being equivalent is that you have upgraded wide receiver 2 significantly, right? Or 1, whichever one you want to call Robert Woods or Treylon Burks, whichever it is, you are way better at wide receiver 2. You're probably better at wide receiver 3. Wide receiver 4 is Nick Westbrook-Akine, who's probably developed, or he's 3 and he's developed and he's actually gotten some reps. Tight end 1 is better than it was last year at this time. Austin Hooper is a better starting tight end than they had at this point last year. And you've upgraded tight end 2 with Okonkwo from the draft.
So basically you just said the Titans have gotten better across the board, so they're better. And I agree.
With the obvious exception that wide receiver 1 is taking a significant step back, unless you get a full 17 games out of Robert Woods, in which case it's a step back clearly, but not a huge step back in my opinion. So I think it's closer than you would think without A.J. Brown.
I think it's better. I feel better about the wide receiver and the pass catchers in this May than I did last May.
Okay.
When you look at this, Josh Reynolds, A.J. Brown, Nick Westbrook-Akine were your wide receivers at the top with Rashard Davis, Mason Kinsey, Cameron Batson, Chester Rogers, Des Fitzpatrick, Racey McMath. It was a terrible thing to be going in there with. And if it wasn't for Julio, and listen, we know it was terrible because it basically came to fruition in the regular season because of injuries and A.J. Brown not being able to even stay in the games that he was healthy in sometimes. And same with Julio. Now, Julio, the reason why we are doing May to May is because Julio was gotten later on in the draft or later on in the offseason. We're not to that point in the offseason. So post-draft, I looked at the tight end room and I looked at the wide receiver room, and it made me want to vomit. And I look at it this way, and I'm looking at the tight ends are significantly better.
Yes.
Basically, what you got is Jeff Swaim, who was your tight end 1 last year, is now tight end 3. So obviously that's significantly better. And I think that the argument can be made that when you're looking at A.J. Brown and Josh Reynolds and comparing it to Treylon Burks and Robert Woods is light years ahead of Josh Reynolds. And I get it. Treylon Burks is not light years ahead of A.J. Brown. But I still feel a lot better about that duo than the former duo last year. And it just goes down the line. To me, it's just easily better. Now, obviously, when Julio Jones was traded, head and shoulders above the rest, I felt great about it. Didn't really happen, and those are totally two different subjects. So,
Yeah.
but at May to May, I feel a whole lot better about this wide receiver core.
I think the answer is probably it's the same. Is probably the right answer. It's going to be a hard sell for Titans fans to be like, we're better at wide receiver and tight end today than we were at this time last year, even though we just laid out the case as to why it is that way. Just taking away that elite number one it's just going to be hard to replace that, and we'll see what happens. I mean, this is the gamble that John Robinson is making, right? When he trades AJ Brown, this was the gamble. I
just want to say something real quick, off topic. We made it. Our stream has made it. We have a bot spamming the chat with naked girls. Streamer recommends
naked girls.
Yeah,
that sounds terrible.
That's what it says.
Offensive line. Offensive line. This is my biggest problem, frankly.
It's terrible.
This is my biggest problem. Not only did you take a step back, you didn't really address the needs
exactly
all that well, unless you really, really, really believe that Dylan Radins is your true starting left guard and Nicholas Petit-Frere is your true starting right tackle with Jamarco Jones mixed in. It's hard to argue that this group has not taken a step back. So I would go down worse on this position group pretty clearly.
It is no doubt in my mind, this is a way worse offensive line than what the Titans had last year. I feel horrible about it. They have the opportunity in free agency to address it right now or, in a couple days or whenever. They have opportunities to address it, and they need to address it because I don't think Nicholas Petit-Frere is going to be ready. I don't think that Dylan Radins can be relied on as the starting right tackle or the starting left guard because we don't know. They don't have faith in him. They haven't given him a position. They don't know where he's at. I think you need to bring in at least I think I just keep zoning in on Eric Flowers, and I know that he's just going to sign with someone else. But Eric Flowers, a left guard, and putting Dylan at right tackle and letting Nicholas Petit-Frere learn makes me feel 10 times better than putting Radins or Jamarco Jones, a left guard, and NPF at right tackle, which I don't think is going to happen. Ultimately, Jamarco Jones is more than likely going to be your starting left guard, and Radins is going to be your right tackle. And I just don't think those two are better than what you had last year at all.
Like the evaluation of Roger Saffold today versus Roger Saffold's contract are two very different things. Roger Saffold's a hell of a football player right now today. He may not be worth the contract he got from Buffalo, right? So like he's way better than what they. So again, I don't think it's even close.
Because it's expectations, right? We're talking about the expectations we had of this offensive line last year, heading into this year, were sky high at this point.
And I think this is the biggest miss by everyone in the Titans world this past week, because we've been caught off guard by Ryan Tannehill speaking and AJ Brown getting traded and all this other Malik Willis getting drafted. The biggest real issue with this football team is that they did not address their offensive line issues. Like that's the real biggest issue. All this other stuff is it's all just like catnip for all the media people out there. So I think the offensive line is the major question here. All right, front seven on defense. Few pieces are gone. Jayon Brown, Rashaan Evans. You're counting a lot on Monty Rice to fill those gaps. Obviously, your boy Chance Campbell, you like him, the sixth rounder out of Ole Miss. I think the front seven's about the same. It's still the best defensive line maybe in football. So I think they're in a good spot here.
I think it's better, and here's why I'm going to tell you why it's better, is because last year at this time, Bud Dupree, we didn't know what he was going to be for the Tennessee Titans come game day. Now we've seen him on the field without TJ Watt, and he is a force multiplier. So now we know what Bud Dupree brings to the table. We now know that Danico Autry is even better than what we thought he was going to be last year. I mean, that's another thing that we got to factor in, is that Danico Autry, we knew he was going to be good and going to be help, but he was light years better than what we could have asked for. Jeffrey Simmons improved exponentially and took that big leap that everybody was hoping for. Now we know he's done that, right? So there's a lot of things that we know. We know that David Long and Zach Cunningham are way better than David Long or than Jayon Brown and Rashaan Evans, who were those guys. So in my mind, I think, and even Monte Rice, went in. I think that this whole defense is better technically than what it is last year, even though it's largely the same.
And hard to argue. I'll just package secondary into this too. Like it's hard to argue the secondary hasn't improved as well. You've added Roger McCreary, Sir Dane Cruikshank is gone, and Jackrabbit Jenkins are gone, but All the young pieces are developing. You're adding Caleb Farley, although he was on the roster at this time last year. We just didn't know. To your point about Bud
Again, you
Dupree,
didn't know what he was going to be,
right?
and he was healthy.
Right. So I think if you look at the defense as a whole, you could argue that the depth chart, let's say 1 to 22, let's say the 2 deep is probably better today than it was last year across the board. So
yeah, I think the defensive backfield is the same, just because you lost Jack Rabbit, and I knew what Jack Rabbit was, and he did live up to that. We don't know what Caleb Farley is, and we really don't know what Roger McCreary is at the next level, even though we do know what Buster Screen is. It's just not the same as my confidence level in Jack Rabbit as the starting two. But we'll say now we know what Christian Fulton is, right? So now, boom.
Yep, already better.
It's kind of, I just think it's the same, a good give and take.
Okay, I'm fine with that. If we want to go same for secondary, slightly better on front seven. The point is the defense hasn't gone backwards.
Yeah, no.
There's no argument.
I would say, and I'd agree with you that the depth has gotten better, which could technically mean that this defense can be better.
So backfield is better. You think receiving core is slightly better, if not about the same as last year.
It's better. It's hands down better.
Front seven and DBs are better. Other than the offensive line, you're making the case that this entire Titans roster is a slight step forward from this time last year. What about special teams to wrap it up?
That's just better. It's the same.
About the
special
same.
teams are special teams.
So are the Titans in a better situation on Cinco de Mayo on May 5th this year than they were on May 5th last year? By the way,
I think they are. I know that sounds crazy, but I think they are in a better place than what they were. Now, come June, if there maybe isn't another wide receiver or another offensive lineman, then no. When you compare June to June, I won't feel the same. And that's just being honest, because I had high expectations then.
Okay. I'm pretty calm after this draft. I like the draft. Yeah. I like where this roster is. I think the sky is falling. Folks need to take a deep breath. There's a lot of time before football starts, and we'll see what else the Titans have up their sleeve. So I think the roster is okay. I think they need to address offensive line issues. That to me is the major issue for me. All right, let's get into some of the quarterbacks, because I saw a lot of this talk as soon as the draft ended, and this is the thing the Titans will have to consider, and I think just SEC football fans in general, is that the 2023 class of quarterbacks across the entire country of college football is just absolutely sick. It's loaded, and this is the if Malik Willis.
So we think.
Right.
There's still got to be seasons to be played.
I would argue the depth at quarterback at this time last year and this time this year is significantly different. There are 20 to 25 very good college quarterbacks. There were maybe 5 to 10 last year about this time. So I think college quarterback play is way up this fall, which is exciting. I think people should get excited about that. And if Malik Willis doesn't work out, and within a year that maybe it's not going to be, he's not ready to take over at the end of the season because Ryan Tannehill is, let's say they're getting rid of him or whatever, the contract, they can't figure it out, whatever. You might be looking at a quarterback in the draft next year as well. And which I know sounds crazy, but there are a ton of talented guys in the SEC that are worth watching this year in 2022. And latest mocks have upwards of 4, 5, maybe even 6 quarterbacks going in the first round next year.
Listen, Mel Kiper on, I think it was Darian Mel, said that he thinks that there's going to be over 6.5 quarterbacks taken in the first round. And I think that's crazy talk. And here's why. There's no demand for that many. There's not that much demand for all those quarterbacks.
Well, I think you're totally wrong about this.
No. I mean, okay, so let's run through them just real quick. Buffalo doesn't need one. Miami probably won't need one because Mike McDaniel's offense will be that good. New England doesn't need one. That's a projection. That's a probably.
Okay.
New York's not going to need one. The Jets. The Ravens more than likely won't need one because they're going to probably want to keep Lamar Jackson, right? Now, if they let him go, that's different. The Bengals don't need one. The Browns don't need one. The Steelers don't need one. The Texans probably don't need one if the Texans get enough out of Davis Mills. He showed a lot of promise last year.
The Texans are absolutely. The Texans are 1,000,000% in the quarterback market.
I think that you can say that, but they could have been in this market too, and they haven't made any overtures to try to trade for a quarterback, which they could have done
because they all suck. They all sucked in this draft.
Aaron Rodgers sucked.
No, in the draft. They all sucked in the draft.
I'm just saying that they're not. They showed they weren't in the quarterback market.
I think because I think all these teams, Atlanta, you name all these teams. I think there are.
Would
10...
you rather have Aaron Rodgers than or some of these other?
Yes, of course.
So that's what I'm saying. They weren't even in those races.
Because well, first of all, I think the price and there's just certain teams that aren't going to be in the Aaron Rodgers situation.
I'm not saying that they can't be, but I don't think it's for sure 100% that they are.
I think you're I think you're right to go under 6.5 quarterbacks in the first round just based on historical context.
Yeah.
But I think you're wrong. I think you're underestimating the quarterback needs. I think every team looked at the cost of Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers in trades and the quarterback crop coming out in this draft class and said, no way, I'm good. I'll wait until 2023. Because there are at least 5 guys in just the SEC that are being talked about as first-round quarterbacks right now today on May 5th.
I think all this will change as the season goes along. It's all fluid. I think it's way too early for any of this talk, but we're going to talk about it anyway. Buy, sell, SEC first-round quarterbacks. I want to start off with Bryce Young, Tony Richardson. You're a big Tony Richardson guy.
Yeah.
I saw that Mike Miller Mel Kiper had him going in the first round, or McShay had him going in the first round. And Matt Miller said that, are we even confident that he's going to start and it's not going to be the other guy to win the job? So tell us what you see about Richardson that makes you think that he's going to be an SEC first-round quarterback.
So Bryce Young will be probably the second pick in the draft behind C.J. Stroud, who's the quarterback at Ohio State.
He's a tad overrated, by the way.
Stroud or Young?
Young.
I know, and I actually don't disagree with you. I think Stroud will be graded out higher than he is. But he will be taken in the first round. So let's if it's buy or sell, if Bryce Young is going in the first round, we're all going to say yes. Todd McShay had Anthony Richardson from Florida going number 6 overall. And while I don't necessarily buy that high of a hype, this is a guy who was averaging 8.5, 9 yards per play on the ground, as well as through the air last year when he was used in spot duty at Florida and, as behind Emory Jones. He is an extraordinary talent. 6'3", 6'4", 240 pounds, can run like the wind. Like, he has an exceptional skill set. So the scouts are going to love him. You're right, Matt Miller, and I've talked to him about this. Like, he's got to win the job at Florida because Billy Napier's the new coach, but I think it's a lot of lip service. I think he's going to be the starting quarterback at Florida, and I think he's going to be a rock star. I just don't know if he does enough this year to come out, and maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe the scouts just love him so much because of his frame and his size and his skill set that they're just going to be all over him because the guy is an extraordinary athlete. I mean, Cam Newton, Tim Tebow type of athletic ability, not necessarily throwing ability. He's a much better arm than Tim Tebow, let's say. So I would buy Anthony Richardson as a first-round pick for sure.
Okay, so you have a long shot, kind of I think that he could sneak into the first round because of what he's going to do this year, and that is KJ Jefferson. Talk about what you talked to me, and you said people are going to see him and say, oh, he reminds me of Cam Newton.
Yeah, we'll get to Hendon Hooker and Will Levis and a couple of the other guys, but I think KJ Jefferson at Arkansas is the one to keep an eye on. He is not a first-round grade right now. He was just a sophomore last year, but he did so much for that team. And if you're watching, this is a good time if you're a Titans fan, if you're watching Treylon Burks film, keep an eye on the quarterback because the quarterback at Arkansas is also got Cam Newton type abilities, that size, speed, big frame, leadership, all this stuff. And I think he has a lot more development than sort of Anthony Richardson at Florida when you just sort of see it on tape. But if he does develop and Arkansas is as good as we think they can be this year, which is another 8 wins, let's say, for Arkansas, the dude just put on a show in a lot of games already as just a sophomore last year. So I think he's got fringe ability. I think he's more of a late second-round pick, but keep an eye on him and see how he develops. If you're trying to project a guy kind of coming out of nowhere like Kenny Pickett, I think KJ Jefferson is a guy to keep an eye on.
All right. You're selling on Spencer Rattler, Hendon Hooker, and Will Levis, which I find interesting specifically about Will Levis, but we'll talk about that. I don't really disagree with these other two guys. I don't think Spencer Rattler or Hendon Hooker are first-round talents. You'd be hard-pressed to convince me that Hendon Hooker is going to go above the 4th round.
This is what I never understood from Tennessee fans all offseason. Like, when he decided to come back, they were like, yes, he's coming back. And I'm like, from where?
Yeah.
And I don't understand this. I think Hendon Hooker is a great college quarterback, and he's a perfect fit in Josh Heupel's system, and he has been extremely efficient, like nationally underrated efficiently for Tennessee. I don't see NFL skills. I just don't. I haven't seen NFL progression, NFL arm strength, NFL like the reason he lost the job to Joe Milton, who is not good at football, is because Joe Milton could throw the ball much, much further and harder than Hendon Hooker could because he has an NFL arm. I just don't see NFL skills. And he's not playing in an NFL offense. You have to be extraordinary to come out of a system like that and be good. We're going to see what Drew Lock does because that was Josh Heupel's system at Missouri. And the big knock on Drew Lock was he didn't understand an NFL system. So I am concerned about, like, I think Hooker's a great player. He's a great college quarterback. I just don't see first round skills when it comes to all the stuff. Like, again, he's more Robert Griffin kind of flailing around at times. Like, I don't think that works in the NFL. I think he's going to have to be more precise.
And his deep ball's not that great, in my opinion.
I agree.
Deep ball, and I think you need to have that kind of accuracy to be considered among this quarterback class a first round pick.
Yes, and this goes to Rattler too. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it with Rattler. Like, I get the pedigree and the training at Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley's system, but like, he wasn't good. He got benched.
He's awful.
And now you're telling me that a quarterback who's going to play for a lesser coach in a lesser offense on a lesser roster against a tougher schedule is all of a sudden going to be better. And I've talked to Josh Kendall, like, of The Athletic, about, like, why do fans give me the reason why Spencer Rattler is going to be better at South Carolina than he was at Oklahoma? And they're like, we don't have one.
Yeah.
There isn't one.
There isn't a valid reason.
Maturity, and that's a big reach. That's a big reach. Yeah. So
I'll believe that when I see it.
Will Levis, on the other hand, at Kentucky, who was mocked by Todd McShay as a top 10 pick in next year's draft. So maybe I'm totally wrong on this. He went to Penn State. He was a big-time recruit, 4-star kid, big arm, NFL. He's got some NFL talent. Here's the thing I like about Will Levis. He plays in an NFL system. So Liam Cohen was hired by Kentucky. He was the former offensive coordinator or quarterbacks coach for the Rams. Tough year to be away from the Rams coaching staff, by the way. He left the Rams and then went back to the Rams and 1 year. In the 1 year, they won the Super Bowl. So tough break, Liam. They hired Rich Scarangello from Kyle Shanahan's coaching staff at Kentucky, who's going to keep that offense an NFL-style offense. So I think he's getting the right training and has the right skills. I just haven't seen him protect the football enough. He turns the ball over way too much and relies on his legs a little too much. I need to see him this year on a less than Kentucky offense doing NFL things with the arm. And if he does that, then I think he's got a really good chance to be a first-round pick.
Any other quarterbacks you want to talk about just real quick before we wrap up?
In the SEC, I love the quarterbacks in the SEC. Keep an eye on all those 5-star freshmen too. Connor Weigman at Texas A&M, the kid at LSU's name's like totally escaping me right now. You got Vandergriff and Brock Vandergriff and Carson Beck at Georgia behind Stetson Bennett. So you got a lot of 5-star kids that are coming into the league that are going to be really, really good soon. So keep an eye on some of those guys. Max Johnson, Miles Brennan are both pretty good too. Around the country, it's loaded. The ACC is loaded. The Pac-12 is loaded. Tyler Van Dyke out of Miami could be a first-round pick. Jake Haener at Fresno State could be a first-round pick. There are a lot of really good quarterbacks in college football in 2022. So enjoy quarterback play in 2022.
And this is also, all these quarterbacks are coming out and coming into the draft, or it's also another reason why if they miss and see that Malik Willis isn't anything as a third-round pick, they're going to be fine.
This is why I think there are more teams in the quarterback market next year than you're given credit for, because the Titans could be one of them. Like, the Titans could be in the market.
First-round quarterback market is all I'm
concerned. All right, okay. I think there's going to be a lot of first-round quarterbacks next year.
New segment.
Oh.
It's not a football show.
Wait a second. It is a football show.
But it's not a football show.
Sometimes it's not a football show, though.
Yeah.
All right, so my question, and I was watching, I know you're a big Grizzlies fan.
Yes.
I am a lifelong diehard Memphis Grizzlies fan who grew up a Knicks fan, who loves Jon Marant. And by the way, the series against Golden State has been exceptional. And I posed this question last year.
Series are probably the best series I've seen in a long time in modern basketball.
The Timberwolves series was great too.
Yeah.
So here's the question. I asked this question last year on Twitter, and everyone kind of laughed at me because they were like, Jon Marant, he's not worthy of this discussion. And look where we are now. So the question is, who is the best? And we can ask this a few different ways. Like, who's the best athlete professionally in the state of Tennessee? Who is the best player in the state of Tennessee? And who is best at their job in the state of Tennessee? Roman Yossi right now is arguably the best defenseman on the planet. Derrick Henry, you could argue pretty easily, is the best running back on the planet.
And one of the best football players on the planet, to be honest.
And Jon Morant I don't think it's crazy to say that Jon Marant could be the best point guard on planet Earth. At least if you were drafting to look forward, you are. He's clear. He's going toe to toe with Steph Curry, by the way, and winning a game. So I don't know if that qualifies as being on the same level. I put up a poll question. It was 41% Jon Marant, 37% Derrick Henry, and like 23% or 25% Roman Yossi, something like that. Where do you fall on the debate? Who do you got? Who you got here?
Okay, so better at their job. I think Derrick Henry has the easiest job to succeed in out of all three of them because there's so many layers that Jon Marant has to go through with so many different players that he has to play against and with different styles, different levels of competition, almost nightly throughout the whole season. And I think Roman Yossi, he's fantastic, but his job is probably the toughest out of all three of them compared to he has to play both ways, all this stuff that he's got to do in and out, in and out. I think Derrick Henry has the easiest job. And so therefore, and he's exceptional at his job. And so I think he is better at their job. Now, the most talented or most exciting player is easily Jon Marant. It is by a landslide. You can save your Derrick Henry clips all that you want. You watch Jon Marant try to go to a basket and body 7-foot-tall dudes on the way, and he goes from 0 to 60 quicker than anything I've ever seen. He is the most exciting player to watch. And I love Roman Yossi. And I hate that this sounds like I don't like Roman Yossi because I've been a big Roman Yossi guy for a while now. And I always kind of liked him a little bit more than Philip Forsberg, but I'm a defensive guy. That's just kind of what I like. I don't know where I really place him. I think he's like number 2 in both categories.
Right. Here's the real answer to this question is, and I could add to this, by the way, the 2-time defending defenseman of the year in MLS. So the greatest defensive soccer player in America is Walker Zimmerman. Hani Mukhtar for Nashville SC was an MVP candidate last year, like Aaron Rodgers MVP of MLS. Again, I know MLS is not the same as EPL or whatever, but the real answer to this question is we are living in an extraordinary time for professional athletes in the state of Tennessee, and you should enjoy it. That's the right answer to this. That's
everybody got to be watching the Grizzlies games. I mean, you just got. Listen, I chose to watch it over the Preds game because they're a little outmatched.
5 minutes in, it wasn't worth it to watch.
Yeah, so I mean, the Grizzlies game is amazing. I took my brother-in-law somewhere to have him go watch it, and we're just in awe of watching both the soccer game going on and the Grizzlies game going on at the same time. It's what a time to be alive.
Yeah.
Especially for a kid that went to University of Memphis, that's a Memphis Tigers fan, that loves City of Memphis, loving the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah. And I don't know why Nashville doesn't love Memphis more, but that's a topic for another show. I think Jon Morant's the best pure athlete of the group. I'm not sure that's close. I think he's the most exciting. I think Derrick Henry does his job maybe better than anybody else because it's like you said, it's kind of easier. Being a point guard and being a defenseman is very difficult in terms of like Derrick has to rely on like an offensive line, right, to do things. Like that's just the nature of football. Whereas Jon Marant, you're a one-man show with the ball in your hands at all times. Like you kind of have to do everything when you're the point guard. So I think his job is tougher. So I would go Jon Marant. My answer would be Jon Marant for everything. All these questions: best athlete, Jon Marant; best player, Jon Morant; best at his job, Jon Morant. But I totally understand why you would argue Derrick Henry. Like I don't arguing against Derrick Henry feels like trying to tackle Derrick Henry. It seems futile at best.
What constitutes the best athlete? Is it just the quickest athlete? Because I kind of feel like Derrick Henry is a pretty damn good athlete.
Well, so this is what's interesting about the Morant-Henry comp is that they are extraordinarily talented at what they do, but they're different, right? Like Derrick Henry can't jump like Jon Morant. Like Jon Morant does things in the air that NFL receivers can do that, and that's about it. Like there's not like the NBA. I would argue the NBA are the best athletes in professional sports because they are 6'11", 240, and running 4.5s. Like, does that make sense? Like I think NFL players are tougher. I think they're more physical. I think there's a lot of things that NFL players are better at. But if you ask me who's the greatest athlete, I'd be like Dwight Howard or whatever, like LeBron James or whoever's like 6'10", 270 and running 4.5s, you know? So that's sort of a formality there, but it's a great, the point is what a great time to enjoy professional sports in Nashville and in the state of Tennessee. It's just appreciate it for what we have because we're not going to have this all the time. Like,
that's right.
it could be gone. So I think that just about does it for us. What else you got, man? Anything?
That is it. No articles coming out in the foreseeable future. I'm kind of taking a break because I was putting out a lot of content. But go listen to Football and Other F Words wherever you get podcasts. It was a fantastic introspective look into ourselves, into the soul of a man. Between me and Lebowski, we were very just, self-aware, and we talked about the AJ Brown trade, where we were at the time of the trade, where we are at now, and the journey to get there. And we talked about Ryan Tannehill more in depth than what I've even talked about today, with different points made.
I think Lebowski grew a lot on this last episode.
He did.
I think he did. I think he learned that maybe first half Twitter is a bad look for him, or maybe he just doesn't enjoy it like he used to, because Twitter's an awful place and you shouldn't be there. And I spend entirely too much time there. So no, great episode, Football and Other F Words. I love how you guys approached the entire week of news. I think you guys did a great job. Go check that out. Mel Kiper, if you want to hear the entire interview, obviously you got about 30 plus minutes with him talking Titans and draft coverage, all that kind of stuff. Lamestream Sports Podcast. Make sure you check that out. It's out on Friday. Gold Standard Podcast with Adam Vingan covering the playoff games. We'll have short reaction shows after every single game. You've got Fringe Element covering SEC football. We had Seth Emerson talking Georgia Bulldogs this week, doing a Georgia State of the Union. So Club and Country, those guys giving away some tickets, by the way, next week at a watch party. So make sure you come on out. Check out the Club and Country podcast for more details on those tickets, how you can win some tickets to Geodis Park down there at Wedgwood, Houston. You got all the other stuff from Broadway Sports Media, right? You got the Music City Audible, the Hot Read podcast, all that great stuff. Please check out the YouTube page. Make sure you're pushing all the buttons, set the notifications, all that great stuff as well. Rate, review, subscribe. Follow us on the Twitters. Special thanks to Cast Collective, where we're not today, but they are our studio, and of course you should support them at Cast_Collective. And last but not least, Zach, our title sponsor, the Kingston Group, BuildKG.com. If you're making a big decision about your house, why would you do it without all of the best possible help and information? So go talk to the Kingston Group. Zach, that's it, man. We're done. We'll talk to you guys on Monday. Thanks for hanging out with us. For Zach, I'm Braden. Thanks for listening. This has been a football show.